The U.S. is all abuzz about the upcoming performance of the Puerto Rican rapper Bad Bunny at the next Super Bowl because he only sings in Spanish. Europeans who've been listening to music in a whole potpourri of languages for decades can only smile at the uproar. Welcome to the giant island known as the United States of America. My first realization that the U.S. had no non-English pop music was in college in the 1980s. I had heard the famous, in Europe that is, Italian bard Angelo Branduardi on the radio during my year abroad in Spain. Upon returning to the U.S., I scoured the record stores in vain for his music. I even asked an Italian classmate if he had any idea where I could find Branduardi's music in the U.S. Nope. In Spain, I heard music not just in Italian, but salsa from Cuba and other Latin American countries, and other pop musicians in dance clubs. Songs by French musicians, and even a few German ones, were also played on the radio. And, of course, music from Spain. But by far the dominant source of pop music was from the U.S. In those days, hardly anyone spoke English in Spain, so they didn't understand much of the lyrics. But it never occurred to anyone to complain. The English-speaking world was the main source of pop music, so people just struggled to understand as best they could. My Spanish roommates often asked me, the resident English language expert, to unravel the lyrics for them. Fast forward to present-day Germany, where I live. Turn on the radio, and 80% of the music you'll hear will be in English, performed not just by U.S., British, and Irish musicians, but also by non-native speakers who sing in English to reach a broader audience. This dominance of the English language in pop music has a long history. Post-World War II Germany was flooded with GIs, especially in Bavaria, the American sector of the occupied country. I watched a TV series about the cultural history of Munich, Als München sexy war, when Munich was sexy, with film footage depicting GIs dancing their hearts out to American pop music, while Germans stood motionless at the edge of the dance floor, transfixed. One of the DJs from the 1960s interviewed on the series told of how he wrote down the names of the songs and sprinted off to the record store to order them the next day. And yes, those were all American songs. The Beatles' debut in the music world has become the stuff of legend. They toured Hamburg bars, singing in English, of course. I read once that they made an effort to simplify their lyrics so that Germans could understand them more easily. But it wasn't just in Germany that the U.S. influence on music was huge. It was all over Europe. Coming from the birthplace of jazz, American jazz musicians had been popularizing the genre at least since the 1920s. Jazz was popular in Mussolini's Italy, too, where the fascist leader even tried to Italianize Louis Armstrong's name by translating it quite literally into Italian. Luigi Bracciaforte. Hilarious, but it also bears testament to the strong draw of American music. Puerto Rico, the home country of Bad Bunny, was colonized by the Spanish in the 16th century and became a U.S. territory following their victory in the Spanish-American War of 1898. Puerto Rico has remained a territory ever since, with a dollar-based economy but no right to vote. After centuries of Spanish rule, Spanish was, and remains, the main language of the island. It comes as no surprise that Bad Bunny sings in his native language, Spanish. It also comes as no surprise that the U.S. is horrified by the idea of someone singing in Spanish at the Super Bowl, particularly with all the rhetoric about the country being invaded by Spanish speakers, which is particularly ironic in view of the traditional U.S. domination of Spanish-speaking countries, not just Puerto Rico, as already mentioned, but all of Central and Latin America. This dominance has recently been reinvigorated by the government's violent kidnapping of the leader of Venezuela and its announced intent to rule the country. The strong economy of the U.S. has long attracted immigrants from its neighbors, such that it has 60 million Spanish speakers, making it the second largest Spanish-speaking country after Mexico. Together with other immigrants, these Spanish speakers in the U.S. are fueling a kind of xenophobia, which doesn't exactly encourage learning Spanish or any other language. Americans have a long tradition of fearing other languages. Even founding father Benjamin Franklin warned that German speakers were going to take over the U.S. In view of the difficulty of German grammar, which I have spent many hours mastering, I'm very happy that they did not. This English-only mentality on the giant island of the United States has led to a complete neglect of foreign languages. Most colleges are currently eliminating their foreign language requirements altogether. Let's face it, the only reason people take foreign languages in the U.S. is to get college credit, not to actually speak the language. Indeed, why bother when the rest of the world speaks English? Contrast the panic at Spanish-speaking Bad Bunny's upcoming performance with the annual Eurovision Song Contest, which has people singing in their native languages. Most outside their countries don't understand, but nobody cares. They know that lyrics are just one aspect of the art. It's also about the musician's outfit, the dancing, the stage setting, and most of all, the music itself. Music, like any art, needs to be interpreted in context. Someone with no knowledge of painting would probably wonder what the big deal is about the Mona Lisa, for example. But when you know that the painting was carried around by its famous creator, Leonardo da Vinci, because of a mysterious bond he had with it, the painting starts to become more interesting. It was stolen from the Louvre in 1911. Thankfully, the museum has gotten a lot better at protecting its valuables since then, right? And it also went on tour to the U.S. in 1963 and Japan in 1974. Da Vinci also kicked off a trend in the Renaissance by portraying his subject in front of a landscape. On top of that, the Mona Lisa is the subject of a song by the same name by Nat King Cole. That's a lot of publicity for a single painting. Lighten up, America. You learned how to say burrito, taco, and empanada to order your dinner at Taco Bell after the country was conquered by Mexican food, saving generations of Americans from the doldrums of standard hamburger and fries fare, which is what I grew up on, sadly. Heck, even that Chihuahua speaks a few words of Spanish. And let's be honest, do you understand what all of those English-speaking rappers are singing? Exactly.